Hello, everyone, and you welcome another moment with POP, Progress Over Perfection, the podcast that help people have a better relationship. Today, I'm very thrilled because I'm talking with therapists from the other side of the world, from America, from Colorado. I'm here with Melissa Shaw. She is a counseling therapist specialized with couples. And today we're going to talk about attachment. Hello, Melissa. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you to accept my invitation. And would you like, please, to tell us what you do and what is your story and why you became a couples therapist?
Yeah, I am. I own Not Counseling, so it's a small counseling practice in Denver, Colorado. We specialize in couples and trauma. There are currently 17 of us, and we're all. I hand select people that are passionate about what they do. It's not just a job for us. We love it. I got into couples because I started out working with individuals, and it just felt like I couldn't get to the core of the problems. A lot of people were having relationship struggles, and trying to do that with one person, felt like driving with one hand behind your back. So I ultimately decided to pivot and start working with couples.
What do you like about working with couples?
Oh, just about everything. I love I love the pattern. I love being able to see the pattern. I think that when you work with individuals, there's a lot that's hidden. You're just seeing one perspective. When you can see both people in front of you, the cycle, the pattern really starts to reveal itself. And um, I don't know, it just becomes like this really clear blueprint on what needs to
Mm.
happen and how this can be feeling better for both people.
Today we're going to talk about attachment. That is something that is became very popular in the last few years. Everybody talk about attachment, and I know that you are an expertise in this thing. That's correct.
Expert? Yeah, I guess I do it day in and day out. I don't know. That expert seems like a big word, but I feel really confident in attachment styles.
Okay, can you explain what is an attachment and what is the theory about around that?
Um, Attachment styles are, I think, put quite simply, they are our method that we develop early in childhood. It's our method on how we want to belong and show up to get our belonging and love needs met. So attachment it's an adaptation. It's an adaptive process to try to find a way to belong and without pain.
Mm. So it is a coping mechanism.
Yeah, I think that, at its core, it's our earliest attempts to feel safe and to feel loved. More than coping, I think they're adaptations. So, when we
Mm.
reach for love and something doesn't feel good, if love feels overbearing, if love feels inconsistent, if love feels if it feels like we're going to lose love, we make adaptations in our body, in ourselves, to try to maintain love and belonging and get that need met. So maybe less of
Mm.
coping and more of an adaptation.
Okay, is that an adaptation? And there is different way to adapt. What is the different be way to be attached?
The ones I think that people hear about the most are the anxious attachment style, the avoidant attachment style, and secure attachment. And then there's also disorganized attachment. So anxious attachment style. I like to make it easy to understand, especially for my couples. So I like to think of the anxious attachment style like a puppy, right? Just always kind of like coming at you and ready to play, ready to go, ready to talk, ready to process and get through something. The avoidant attachment style to me feels like a turtle. They'll like stick their head out and look around quietly, gently. And if it doesn't feel good, it often feels like they close up and go away. And then, of course, the puppy and the turtle interacting together. If the turtle comes out to play, the puppy's like, "Hey, I've been waiting for you all day," and kind of tromps over to the turtle, and the turtle closes up. And then, of course, there's disorganized attachment, and um, I guess the best way that I like to think of that, because I think in metaphors, is it's the gas pedal and the brake pedal. It's the puppy and the turtle, right? So, wait, I want to be close. Where are you? Oh gosh, that's scary. I'm going to back up and close up. So the gas and the brake pedal at the same time.
What is the secure one?
Secure attachment is, I think, essentially where we all strive to be. I'm okay with myself. I trust that my feelings aren't too much for you. I know that I matter. I'm allowed to make mistakes. I feel valued. I feel appreciated. I know that I can I can hear how I hurt your feelings without feeling like you're going to take it personally or not like me. It's okay to make mistakes, essentially, and we can still have a loving relationship.
Mm. So the attachment style is something that we develop when we are kids,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's definitely influenced by our earliest programming, by our families of origin.
Okay. So and how early childhood experience would caregivers shape
I
our
think it
attachment
happens right
style?
away. I think that we are just, from the moment that we're aware, we are looking for love and looking for what feels good, and our environment is telling us how to get our needs met. It's constantly teaching us how to get our needs met. I think attachment starts in infancy.
Mm. And what is the behavior of caregiver behavior that give us the
Yeah, that's
attachment?
such a good question. Um, it can be overbearing. We can have an overbearing parent that's too much. We can have a critical parent that makes the kiddo feel like no matter what, they didn't do it right. We can have a parent who is kind of void of emotions altogether, which is going to create probably an anxious attachment style. We can have a situation where a parent abandoned a child. So I think, and I also think that we can have healthy, normal childhoods, and we're still trying to navigate trauma or no trauma. We're still trying to navigate, how do we belong? How do we fit in this world? And um, no parent is going to create a perfectly securely attached kiddo. I think, I notice a lot of times people will lean one direction or the other. And so I don't think the goal is necessarily to um, become perfectly secure. The goal is to create safety. So healing attachment is going to happen in connection. It is a relational healing, not an isolating healing. We're not going to do it on our own.
So you say that when you work with the couples and you work in on attachment, you do with both of the person in relationship.
Yeah.
That's correct. And how you, for example, if um, one is avoidant and the other one is secure, how you help them to handle this kind of relationship? Because of course, one is very secure, know what they want. The other one is running away as soon they feel threat. At the same time, because they feel threats, they run away. The secure partner get upset because say, I need your stability. So how you help them to understand and work on the relationship?
And I know this kind of sounds like cliche and not big enough of a solution, but the first thing that I do, which is the most powerful thing I do, is just raise awareness to it. I talk about the differences in this pattern. I lay it out on a continuum. I explain it. And then we start to actually map out the couple cycle. We talk about the more you do this, the more you do this. And the more she does this, the more you do this. And the more he does this or she does this, right? And then we just keep going from there. And we start talking about the core wounds of attachment style. So every attachment style, um, not every, I mean, I guess I would say secure attachment doesn't, but anxious and avoidant comes oftentimes from a core wound, a fear of abandonment or a fear of judgment or criticism or not being enough or not doing it right. And so we start talking about that and speaking straight to we start looking for when those core wounds are activated, and we try to speak under the surface instead of to the attachment behavior that we see.
Okay. And what make the shift from one attachment to another one so difficult?
Well, because I think people are being reactive to the behavior that they see. I notice that oftentimes avoidant attachment style, people without an avoidant attachment style are internal processors, and people with an anxious attachment style um, are external processors. And if we don't understand how people process things different and how they talk different, we can take offense to that. We can feel dismissed, abandoned. If we are an anxious attachment style, when we can feel judged and criticized and like we are not doing anything right if we're the avoidant attachment style. So one of the things I do with couples right off the bat is I teach them, an external processor. And I think I read this somewhere a long time ago and it just made so much sense to me. But their brain is like a plate of noodles where one noodle touches another noodle, which touches another,
Mm,
and it just keeps going. And it's an infinite situation. And so when you ask an external processor a question, or even when an external processor has a thought, they often have it outside of their body. And they start peppering you with questions and they say, well, what do you think about that? And I don't know, I was thinking about this. And, they kind of just keep going and going and going, right? And an internal processor, on the other hand, their brains feel more like a chest of drawers where, um, and it's all inside their body. And so, like, I imagine an external processor asks a question or has a behavior, and the internal processor hires their, little worker inside their head to go in and open up the drawer, right? So if the external processor says, hey, what do you want to do for dinner tonight? The internal processor is going to go over to the dinner drawer and open it up, but that takes time. And a lot of times, the whole time that's happening, the internal processor is just going to have a blank stare. So then the external processor is
mm,
going to feel like you're not listening to me, you're somewhere else, maybe I need to warm you up, and they're going to start asking you more questions. And now the internal processor is going to start opening all these drawers associated with all the questions and really confused about what you want from them, right? And so, I think that is a lot of the behavior that we react to. I once had this couple that I worked with that said, he said, she says, I want you to plan more things. And he goes, every time I plan things, you tell me all the reasons we can't do it. I don't want to do that anymore. I feel shut down. And she goes, I never do that. And I said, do it in front of me right now. Let's have a conversation. She goes, okay, he says, do you want to go to the mountains this weekend? And she goes, well, we'd have to move around the kids' soccer team. We'd have to reschedule dinner on Saturday night. She starts going through their whole weekend. And the internal processor is looking at me like, see, she's telling me all the reasons why we can't do it. But she gets to the end of the weekend and she goes, so then if I do that and do this, yeah, I think we can do that. I think we could go to the mountains. And he's like, what? You just told me all the reasons we can't go. And she said, no, I didn't. I was just trying to figure out and process how we can go. But since she does it outside of her body, right? And he, as an internal
mm.
processor, which is also really literal, is taking those as all these reasons that we can't go to the mountains. And so often,
So is about listening actually the all
yeah,
conversation, correct?
it's about listening to the whole conversation and understanding that an external processor is just they're doing everything that an internal processor does in their head, but they do it outside their body. Like they go what da 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 da, and then they get to it, right? But an internal processor, if you say, "What do you want to do this weekend?" They'll say, "Let's go to the mountains," and it's just that, right? Now, an external processor is going to say, because that
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a lot, that doesn't feel like enough, and it doesn't feel like there was a thoughtful process in that. So an external processor is going to say, what do you mean? Like, do you really want to go? Are you sure you want to go? Have you thought about it? Have you thought about what that means? And the internal processor is going to start to feel attacked. Like, why isn't my answer good enough? So oftentimes
Yeah.
just teaching internal and I actually did it the other day. I taught this to a couple. We practiced it, worked through a few scenarios. They were on the brink of divorce, and they came back one session later. I mean, of course, I think that we still have a long way to go, but they came back the very next session and they go, "This has changed our marriage."
Yeah. Yeah, just the understanding of the difference between one and two, how they process the same situation. How much you think people are aware about these things?
I think attachment styles are starting to become more and more popular. People are hearing more and more about it, and they're like, "Oh, what's that about?" Um, but reading it and actually applying it through in your relationship, I think is probably the disconnect. And then even taking it a step further and understanding um how the avoidant attachment style actually shows up in your relationship and how the anxious attachment style shows up in your relationship. Right. And so being able to work through that process and experience it, I think, is what we're missing.
Mm. Do you think attachment differ from relationship to relationship? So, for example, our relationship with a friend or with a parents or with a partner, do you think we have different
Oh my
attachment
gosh, I
styles?
have this question with one of my therapist friends all the time. Like, and can your attachment style change? Um, I do think the dance with different people change. So my best friend has a really anxious attachment style. And in my relationship with my husband, I would say I think that we're both in an insecure attachment, but I lean on the anxious side and he leans on the avoidant side. But in the relationship with my best friend, she's always kind of like peppering me and she's very anxious and I'm very hands off and I kind of take the position of the avoidant. I think we have a baseline for sure. And attachment styles can certainly change over time. So yeah, I do think we have a baseline, but I do think they can change depending on who we're with. What do you think?
Well, I think is something that we naturally have. Depends, especially for the main relationship, the romantic relationship, because I think it's connected to the trauma that we experience as a
Yeah.
as a child. So, and the choice that we make, okay, usually we're looking for someone that is very close or very distant to our parents. So our attachment, the attachment that we have with our parents would be probably similar with attachment with with the partner. And at the same time, I agree with you. I think with brothers and sisters, depends what is your relationship, you will have a different attachment. Because I think if your brother or sister is more anxious to
Balance it out.
make,
Yeah.
so yeah, to balance the situation, you step up. Maybe you become more secure or more avoidant or more, I don't know, can
Yeah.
change in that way. Depends,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think.
It's interesting.
This is
Yeah.
my idea. This is my idea. My supervisor say that we will never change our baseline, our base attachment, and then you can modify, you can learn to do it, how to handle. Can you share a case or an example where understanding the attachment style can I did actually help a couple?
I don't know if you followed Terry Real's work. with RLT.
Yes, I heard about him. I haven't studied anything from him, but I think I should because you're not the first
Oh
person
yeah,
to talk
he's
about
great.
him.
He's
So
great. But
yeah.
he talks in his work about the core negative image. And so basically this is the way that we see our partner when they
Mm.
are at their worst. And it's the magnified version of that. So maybe there's like, it's 10% true, but we blow it up in our head and then we respond to that and we react to that. And so the goal with CNI work, core negative image work, is to bust it. So we look for CNI busting behaviors. And so I think that kind of goes along with attachment too, right? If I have an anxious attachment style, I want you to reassure me. So I worked with this couple one time, and she had a very anxious attachment style. And over time, he developed the language to speak right to her, right to her wound, right? And so it's not just behavioral, it's going into the wound, seeing the wound, being proactive with the wound and making it safe. So he would say things like, I know this is going to be really hard for you, but I need to take some space from this right now. This has nothing to do with you. I love you. We're okay. You're okay. I'll be back. And then we worked on him consistently coming back when he said he was going to come back to revisit it because he was an internal
Okay.
processor and had to go do his work inside, right? So then he would come back and he would do that work. One of the things I worked on with her is I had her sitting on her hands. So she wanted to be, because he was kind of a quiet guy. And she wanted to pepper him with questions and warm up the car. And are you sure? And da 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 da. And, just keep pouncing on him like a puppy. And so
Yeah.
I taught her to sit on her hands. I want you to count. I want you to say, I I am confused. You are not wrong. You're not bad, right? So his core wound was, I can't say anything right. No matter what I say, it's going to be wrong. It's going to piss you off. So she would speak straight to that core wound and say, you're a good person. Like I am just confused. I am asking questions because it's not making sense, but this is not how I feel about you. Right. And so in that, we are busting the negative image that we have of each other.
That's very interesting. Okay. I, Sharing this story make me think about another part of the work. I usually connect attachment style with the inner child. Okay. So, do you think there is a connection between the two? Um, do you think repairing the history of the child will help to become more secure in your
Oh,
attachment?
100%. Right. So that core wound that I'm talking about, that that causes the attachment style to grow, that's the soil. And if we can go back to that soil and heal that relational wound, then which is the inner child work, then the world feels safer and more trusting, right? If I'm anxious and I trust that you are going to love me unconditionally, that you are going to be there for me, that this is safe, and your lack of expression or angry tone doesn't mean you're leaving, right? If I can start to heal what I was taught as a child, then the world feels safer and I can show up better in relationship. And then if we go to the avoidant attachment style, if I can feel like it's safe to be close to you without getting emotionally overwhelmed, right? Or without being invaded, if you can have patience with me, because that's what happened to me as a child, then the world becomes safer and I can come out of my turtle shell and show up in this relationship more.
Mm, that's great. Can I ask you what I would like to talk about the trauma of each attachment. Okay, I give you the attachment, and you tell me what are the trauma that lead people to get at
Okay.
this attachment.
Yeah, I'll
Okay,
try.
what do you think? So in in this way, people can actually that listen in the podcast can actually say,
Hmm.
okay, this is me, because people actually knows the story of their life. They know how they grew up as a child in the house, if the parents were present or not, and if we can give few different trauma for each one, people like can actually say, yes, that is me, and maybe they can start to understand and heal. What do you think? Let's
Yeah.
do this. Okay, so let's start with the anxious, your favorite attachment. I understand is your favorite attachment. Um, and the anxious attachment, what are the trauma?
So this could be an avoidant parent, right? That they just, um, let me back up too. I think that there's two things that we do when we're children. We either react to a parent or we model a parent, right? So maybe we watched a parent get love by being anxious, by being chaotic, by being in overwhelm, right? And that's how their parent got their needs met. Now we're teaching our kid to get their needs met that way. Or, so that's the modeling. Or we have an unpredictable parent who is, not available, not showing up, not giving the kind of attention that the kid needs. And then that is creating anxiety. Um, I think too, on another level, when um, this is something that we all do. I think this happens in every healthy household is we teach kids to be proud of things that happen to them outside of their body. Like, so just today, my daughter was in regionals at the cross country meet, and I'm like, you should be so proud of yourself. And so I'm teaching her in that moment to be proud of this thing that you did, right? And then that starts to develop self-esteem that that exists outside of our body, that's based on how other people feel about us, how we look, how much money we have, what we do, performance, all that stuff. So I think in a lot of ways, when that goes to an extreme and we start to rely on that praise and those acknowledgments and accolades or paycheck or whatever it is, when we start to rely on that and it doesn't come and we start to blend in, I think that can create a lot of anxiety if that's how we're used to getting.
What about the avoidant attachment? Where the avoidant, what are the trauma of
Yeah, I think
avoidant?
this is probably a kid that um gets into trouble a lot, that probably doesn't know the answer, and the parent maybe keeps peppering them and like, what do you mean you don't know the answer, and kind of like comes down on them or is really critical of what they say or do. Their answer is never good enough, they question them a lot, and it just feels really overwhelming. The kid doesn't know, like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what you want me to say, feeling forced to say something that they maybe don't feel or doesn't come natural for them. So this is a kid that oftentimes, if there has been like a lot of, emotional overwhelm placed on them, they are going to be backing away. And so that's the reaction. Now, the modeling is, if we're in a home where we have an emotionally overwhelming parent, and then the other parent or caregiver is avoidant and backing away, and the kid's watching, oh, this is how we cope with this, right?
And what is the
Oh,
disorganized?
disorganized, that's the one where it's like the gas pedal and the brake pedal, right? So I'm gonna, like, where are you? Are you there for me? And I want you to be near me. I'm afraid you're gonna leave. And then as soon as you show up and I'm sure that you're here with me, it's gonna feel really scary and vulnerable, and I'm gonna back away and push you
Okay.
away. And that type of avoidance, the brake pedal avoidance part of that, the intention feels different than just avoidant. Avoidant feels like I can't do anything right. To me, actually, I mean, and of course, everybody's different. Like, nobody fits into these like cute, nice, neat little buckets. But 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 disorganized avoidance feels like, holy crap, I'm so scared right now, get away. Like I am so afraid to be vulnerable and lose you.
So the disorganized is the one that if you get too close, run away,
Um,
correct?
the avoidance side of disorganized. So disorganized is anxious, that's the gas, and avoidant, that's the brake. So it's bouncing between
Okay.
both on the continue. It's on the continuum. If
Okay.
this is the continuum, it's bouncing back and forth, but the intention feels different.
Can you tell me now how the people have these three attachment sabotage the relationship, starting with the anxious.
The anxious attachment style is going to sabotage the relationship because it's going to push your partner away. I mean, put quite simply, it's going to push you away because you're very, if we've got an anxious attachment style and we're way on the end of the spectrum, it's going to feel like really needy, really desperate. Um, I had this couple. I always like imagine this one couple when I think about this, and he didn't grab onto her leg and hold her and say, "Don't leave me," but he pretty much did. Like his energy felt like he was clinging onto her for dear life. And he's like, I'm so afraid you're going to leave me. Are you going to leave me? Are you going to leave me? And she's like, no, I'm not going to leave you. And she wasn't. And she's like, I don't know where this is coming from. We're fine. And he just kept saying, are you sure? Because I think you're going to leave me. And it was just so much. And she eventually was like, get away, leave me alone. Like, stop. It's too much. And she pushed him away. And this is a couple that unfortunately got divorced. And it was this anxious pattern that was very smothering and overbearing. And she eventually was like, stop, I need to breathe. And she pushed him away.
The way that he was doing was too much, and she was pressured about that. What about the avoidant attachment idea?
I worked with, and he kind of was on the other end of the spectrum and had this um, extreme avoidance. And um, every time his wife brought something up to him and said, wanted to work through something with him, he would freeze and he would look like a deer in headlights and he would shut down and just choke. He wouldn't know what to say. Like he almost couldn't speak at all and would have to book a session with me and get into the office and talk through it with me and then go face his wife. So he actually was so extreme that he was beating himself up so bad. He actually started to beat himself up. He came in several times with bruises from himself because he was so angry and so scared that he wasn't going to get it right. And he would just shut down.
So the shutdown was like a huge stonewalling.
I imagine it felt like stonewalling, but in his body to her, I imagine it felt like stonewalling to her, but in his body, I think that it was a sympathetic nervous system response. I think it was a fight, flight, freeze. It was a freeze response. Um, and
Okay.
it was not an intentional thing. It was like a choked up, I don't know what to say. I'm frozen. I don't know what to do. I'm wrong. I'm bad. I'm going to screw this up.
This guy, were you able to understand where this fear was coming
Yeah,
from?
so this was actually really interesting because here we're talking about somebody who had an extreme avoidant attachment style. This is a guy that had um, never seen an argument or a fight in his home, and everything was
Oh,
great. Everything was fine. At one point, I don't know what age, 10, 11, something, his parents sat him down at the table and they said, "Babe, we're getting a divorce." He's like, "What?" Didn't know there was anything wrong. They got a really nice amicable divorce. He had, two homes. They stayed connected. Everything was, even in the divorce, was great. And so this is a man that never saw an argument, that never saw a fight, a disagreement, nothing. So the second that he got into a disagreement with his wife, he was like, why is this happening? It must be me. I don't know how to handle this. Yeah, so
Fascinating. Yeah.
fascinating.
Mm. And what about the disorganized? How they sabotage the relationship?
I think disorganized attachment, kind of to me feels most closely related to borderline personality disorder. It is, it feels really chaotic. Um, and it's a pulling you in. It's kind of, both. It's got that anxious, like, where are you? Where are you? Right? I'm testing you. I'm peppering you with questions. I am setting you up, testing you to see if you love me. And then I'm getting angry at you and mad at you and mean. And then I cry because I
Mm.
can't find you. And then I get pissed.
So it looks for example, the one that make a fake account to test if the
Oh,
partner is loyal,
yes.
something like that.
Yes. Yes.
It can be like that. That extreme. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
and of course, everything's on a spectrum,
And
and the situations I'm talking
yeah.
about are, on the ends of the spectrum for sure.
Do you think there is anything connection between attachment and narcissistic disorder?
Yeah, I do. I actually view narcissism as an attachment disorder. I see it through that lens. I see that narcissism is a desperate attempt to connect, to be understood, validated, seen, right? Because they're terrified. And that is how they belong. And I don't know. I feel like the next question might be, so would you put that in avoidant or anxious? And I kind of put it in a category of its own.
Okay, so it's another
Yeah.
extreme. It's another extreme. And why you think therapists are working with narcissistic and disorder and attachment in different ways?
Social media. I think,
Social media,
I
you
think,
say? Okay.
narcissism has a really bad reputation, and for good reason. I mean, it is very difficult to work with narcissism. But I think that, in the mental health field, I don't know how it is there, but here, it's kind of like when you bring up the N word, it's like nobody wants to touch that. It's just kind of thought of as, oh, that's just something that can't be helped. And I think people depersonalize um narcissists and stop seeing them as human and write them off as just too damaged and can't be helped. And I I think that if we can view that through an attachment lens, we can start to see their desperate attempt to find their place and their belonging in the world. And they just do it in a
Mm.
really unhealthy way. Now, the problem is, at least for me, has been um, I can see it through that lens all I want, but I've never been able to get deep enough in the treatment with narcissism for someone to stick around for the end of it. Right. So the minute you start
Yeah.
um, kind of going and talking and processing and getting to the root, like they really understand the work that we do around the attachment wounds. But then when we start talking about how that manifests into today, they have a hard time taking responsibility for that, and usually end treatment early.
I agree with you. I've seen these patterns as well. I worked a couple of times with narcissistic, very bright guys. Very you can see them are very bright, very
Yeah.
beautiful people. They show up and you say, "Wow, this guy." and they really have a very high level self-esteem. And when you start to work and go through the rabbit hole of um, the disconnection with the parents, and they start to look inside them, they
Right.
never come back. They
Right.
run away. Yeah. Uh, is a very very interesting thing. The problem is they going to the next relationship. They do a mess over there as well,
Yeah.
uh, and it's look like the world is against them. But yeah, this is
Yeah.
my perception about
It makes it
narcissistic.
so tough.
Yeah.
I actually had a man that I worked with, um, who came in. It was a couple, and the man came in and he said, "Oh yeah, I am a narcissist. I have narcissism." And I was like, I've never had anyone just come out and say that. I almost felt like because he admitted that he had narcissism that he probably didn't. I was like, I feel like that should be in a DSM as, you know. Um and I didn't see it for a while, and then it came out. And I thought I thought since he had been able to acknowledge it and recognize it and just be open about it, that meant we could start to do the work on on those behaviors and how that affected the
Okay.
relationship.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the
Yeah.
narcissism, which, when we talk about core wounds, I feel like um, the narcissist core wound is being alone and being misunderstood and being wrong.
Mhm.
And I think they're fighting to compensate for that. So, once I started to go there, um, the thing that narcissists do started to take over, the gaslighting and the fear of being wrong, and the talking about percentages. Well, okay, well, if it's 60% me, then it's 40% her. Well, what if it's 61-39? He just had a hard time zooming out and seeing the bigger picture, unfortunately, and I lost him.
Well, look, I will stay here with you. We'll talk about these things for another 3 days. We are
Yeah.
almost at the end of this interview. Can you give to the people listening this podcast maybe a couple tools uh, that they can use as a couple of activity they can actually start to do straight away if they want to modify the attachment style?
Yeah. I think if you have an anxious attachment style, um, I think that you are working on breathing, counting, slowing yourself down in conversation, sitting on your hands and just waiting. Um, so in the moment, that's what you're doing, a bigger picture, talking to your partner about your fears instead of taking your fears out on them. I think avoidant attachment style, I would say talking more out loud about about your process and about, your plans, right? I'm going to take a break right now and I'll be back. And you're a good person and I love you. Right. So just saying those things aloud and understanding the fear of abandonment that happens and speaking to that core wound. I think that, someone who has an anxious attachment style wants more words, and someone that has an avoidant attachment style wants less. So you can ultimately do the opposite. If you're avoidant, give more words. If you're anxious, give less and regulate your nervous system.
Melissa, if someone want to work with you, where they find you?
Notcounseling.com, KNOT counseling with one L.com.
Mhm. Okay. If people want to work online, you do online services as
Online
well?
services? Yes, I definitely do.
Hmm.
I do online services. We actually, in January, are launching the Better Together Blueprint. So it's an online coaching program for couples.
Fantastic. Everybody out there, if you are in Colorado or in USA, Melissa will help you with your relationship. Um, and getting in contact, she is in
Yes.
Denver, Colorado, correct? One day I
Uh,
come to visit the US. Thank you so much, Melissa. Was fantastic. Have a lovely night because over there is night right now. You're going to sleep, and here in Perth, we're going to enjoy the sunshine and the ocean. All of you that listen to the podcast, stay safe and remember, be gentle with your partner because at the end of the day, that is the core of a good relationship. If you are in trouble, remember, every relationship can be saved. See you on the next. Ciao.